Our platinum sponsor, Standard Chartered. This is an organization that is looking to make change. 18 months ago, the newspapers, the fintech media was just lit up with the news that James Dolphin had left Capital One and come over to Standard Chartered. He is their CIO for retail wealth. Dude, go applaud. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah, if you guys are the fan club. This guy's got a fan club. The entourage is in the house. He is a CIO for retail banking, private banking, wealth management, and that was a sign that this bank was ready to just dig into fintech, and they got the right guy. So please welcome to the stage now, James Dolphin from Standard Chartered Bank. James.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Awesome job. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, thank you. That was by a mile the finest introduction I've ever had in my long career, so thank you, Andrew. I was dreading the much coveted after lunch spot, but now you've actually made it kind of exciting, so thank you for that. So as Andrew mentioned, I'm the CIO for Standard Chartered's retail bank, private bank, and wealth management. And I've been doing that job now for 18 months. And what I wanted to talk to this wonderful group of people about were some of the challenges that our industry, banking, and my company, Standard Chartered, have in attracting, in retaining, in motivating the single most important group of people in the world today. And the single most important group of people in the world today are software engineers, okay? That is what makes the world go round in 2017. In fact, they've been making the world go round now for longer than I can remember. It's just, I think people realize it now. And when I think about banking, when I think about retail banking, and you look at how traditionally that industry has approached the job of creating software, creating experiences for our customers, there are some massive problems with how that has been done. For example, I don't know of any great technologists, either self-taught or university qualified, who suddenly thought to themselves, I want to work more than anything else in a highly regulated industry. That's going to really light my fire. And you know what would make it even more special? I would love it if I could write software in an environment where I'm surrounded by technical debt, where I have what we call legacy systems. Mainframes would really seal the deal, right? I don't know of any technologists that would kind of jump out into the world of work with that kind of mindset. And that's a problem for banks, because everything I just described is true of banks. There are some other big problems too. If you look at what banks are and what they do, when you strip away the veneer and the complexity, they're fundamentally trust businesses. They generate trust. And I know we've got all kinds of funky ways of creating trust through distributed networks these days. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about American Wild West frontier levels of trust, right? If you're a farmer in Oregon back in the middle 1800s and you wanted your money to be safe, you had to take it to a bank. Banks created that trust by having big safes where they could lock the money away, and you could be reasonably confident that the money would still be there when you went back. Now that essentially is the business model that banking has subsisted on. We create trust, a trust relationship with our clients, and in return they trust us with their investments, with their money, with their information. Now, the kind of people that are attracted to an industry that exists on trust are many things. They're great people. They're very trustworthy. They are not, however, typically the kind of people that push boundaries. They are not the kind of people that want to accelerate change. They are definitely not the kind of people that disrupt. And so when you step back and look at the problem that I have, I'm inhabiting an industry where the traditional qualities that we need to be successful as a business are antithetical to the ones that I need to be successful as a software engineering company. Yes, I have to protect customers' information. Yes, I have to protect customer data. I have to protect their money. But at the same time, the industry and my company are being challenged by an evolving world in which the expectations of technology are continually accelerating away, and more importantly, the expectations of our customers are being shaped by a whole bunch of non-banks who do things a lot quicker and in many ways a lot better than we do. So how do I go about challenging that? How do I go about changing the way that we operate so that I can rebuild a trust relationship that traditionally was created face-to-face with something that we have to engender and support through a 5-inch screen? It's a very tricky thing to do. And to do that, I need the very best software engineering talent that I can get. And now we're back to the original problem statement, which is that if I go and turn up on a university campus and explain about my technical debt, about my mainframes, about the fact that we're a heavily regulated industry, none of this resonates with the kind of people that I need to hire. So what do? Do I just give up? No. What Standard Chartered are doing now is we're changing the way that we operate in a way that allows us to compete in that marketplace for technical talent. And we can't do it by jettisoning everything that I just described. That's impossible. But what you can do is you can start to change the internal culture of the organization in a way that makes it somewhere that really talented software engineers can feel comfortable and can do great work. And when you decompose what software engineers are looking for in the second decade of the 21st century, they're basically looking for 3 things. They want a set of interesting challenges. Well, we've got those. They want to work with other great technologists. Okay, that's kind of a chicken and the egg. We'll come back to that. And thirdly, they want to see the fruits of their labor, the software that they have created, in production. Because that's their resume. That's their CV. Ideally, they'd like to be able to point to their contributions to an open source project or 2. And that's a little bit risque and controversial for a bank, right? When you start talking about developers working for a bank contributing to free and open source software, all kinds of people get nervous. Lawyers, typically. But at Standard Chartered, we've actually just figured out how we are going to start contributing to our first open source project. And that's been largely a legal question. It has nothing to do with technology. We're just worried that somebody's going to sue us. But I think we've figured our way through that now. So when you come back to those 3 challenges, the technologists want to be working on something interesting. They want to be working with other great people that they can learn from. And they want to see their code in production. We're attacking that in lots of different ways. The first way we're attacking it is by changing completely the model of people that we're looking for. I'm always going to need, for the foreseeable future, people that know how to run mainframes. We need those people. They're required. God love them. They're fantastic. But they're never going to be the people that are providing the latest and greatest digital experience for our customers. So in a way, it's around trying to figure out how to add an entirely different stream of DNA into the body of the organization. And I start looking for that DNA by going out to the one place that I know new, fresh talent is being formed, the universities. And I go and talk to groups of students, and I get them in, and I have internships, where I sit them down with this novel thing that we have now called sprint teams, agile teams. Because the very first thing that you have to change if you want to have a conversation with any great technologist is you've got to change the way you write software. From the traditional bank environment, where one of 2 things would happen. Either you'd have a pool of developers, ideally put them as far away from the business as possible, literally. Like the banking industry model, certainly for retail, was to hire thousands of developers and literally put them as far away as you could get them from the business while still being on the same planet, right? That is a horrible way of developing software. And the next thing you'd do is you'd write long, complicated requirement documents that stipulated in mind-boggling detail exactly what you wanted to write. And then you'd kind of fire that off to wherever those developers were, and then you'd sit back and wait, and wait, and wait. And 18 months later, some code would come back. And then at that point, one of 3 things would happen. You'd realize it wasn't what you wanted after all. You'd realize it was what you wanted, but the market had changed completely in the 18 months. Or some mixture of the 2, and you kind of wanted to change it a little bit, but now you had to write some more requirements and fire them back. And that is a way of developing software which is utterly unacceptable to any decent technologist. They're just not going to come and work for an organization that does that. And so one thing we've done at Standard Chartered is move away from that model in lots of different ways. Now we have what we call business people. I hate that dichotomy, but let's stick with it for a moment. Business people sitting together with the software engineers. And I don't just mean in the same building or on the same floor. I mean literally sitting in small groups of 8 or 10 people every single day, eyeball to eyeball, talking about what problems for the customer they're going to solve. That is a radical departure for most, if not all, banks. One of the biggest cultural obstacles to getting that to happen, I can give you 2 sound bites. Business leaders say that without the FaceTime of their managers, in other words, without sitting with their managers and the entire structure of their organization, they won't get paid properly, which is a bizarre way of thinking about it, right? I'm trying to compete in a marketplace where I have to present digital experiences that wow our customers, that create that trust. I need people there that are creative. I need them to have an understanding about what's going to make that emotional connection with the customer. And I need them to be sitting with the developers so the developers can contribute, so they can challenge, so they can ask questions. And that can all happen in real time. So you have to get beyond that cultural norm that says that technology is something that happens somewhere else. It's kind of beneath business people. It isn't beneath business people. It's above business people. Wow. You can imagine how popular I am at the Christmas party, right? Because I'm delivering some really hard messages to bankers. Software engineering is the one thing they cannot afford not to care about. I will know that I've been successful at Standard Chartered when the CEO of the bank knows the name of one or more of his developers. Hasn't happened yet, by the way, but it will. But it will. So we've gone agile, which is what I was just really talking about. We've created these pods, business people, user experience designers, programmers, sitting down in small groups. I had the weirdest conversation when we did that. Guys started talking about creating agile teams. And people said, yeah, we've already got agile seating. I said, oh, that's fantastic. What they meant was hot desking. Hot desking. Which I guess is agile seating, but it's exactly diametrically opposite to what I was talking about. I need my teams together all day, every day, same spot. The whiteboards still have the technical diagrams on. The Post-it notes are still on the wall. I can't have hot desking, right? It's anathema. So we changed that paradigm. We created physical spaces that let people have that continuity. And the feedback from people that see these physical spaces is they can't believe it's a bank. And at that point, I breathe a sigh of relief and say, fantastic. Because what I can do then is I can bring people in from universities, from other employers, from fintech companies. And they walk into our office and they say, hey, this is kind of cool. And now I have a chance to have a conversation with them about coming to work with us. Which brings me to fintech. So a lot of people in the room here are connected with fintech. You may be founders, you may be working at a fintech, you may cover fintech in the media, you may be thinking about buying some fintech companies. I've done some of that in the past. And the one thing that I love about fintech, even more so than the ideas and the disruption and all the rest of that stuff, I love the people. I love the people. Because go back to my problem statement. The kind of people that self-selected historically to work in a bank were not typically disruptive, challenging kind of people. Whereas in fintech, what I have typically is a group that have self-selected to not work in banking. They have made that choice. And those are exactly the kind of people I want to hire. Paradoxically, I have to get them back, right? And what I find is by creating an environment that really does value software engineering, and by providing those difficult problems, and providing some smart people to work with, and by starting to allow people to release software to our customers really quickly. We deliver code every 2 weeks at Standard Chartered. We might not release it every 2 weeks, because there's all kinds of regulatory stuff we have to go to make sure the data is protected and the money is protected. But we could release it every 2 weeks if we wanted to. So we create that environment, and now I can have that conversation with people working at fintechs around how, for various reasons, their next job might be with us. And that brings into the DNA of the company a whole bunch of people that would never normally have been there. And that's not an optional extra. It is absolutely required. As well as elevating the importance of software engineering within a bank, it is incredibly important to understand that the kind of people that you hire to do it are very different than historically have been the case. They've got to be great communicators because they're sitting with the business every day. They've got to be technically excellent, by which I mean not deep in a particular technology, but broad, and in particular, they need learning agility. The ability, the inquisitiveness, the curiosity to pick up new technologies without being asked. Without being asked. One of the things that drives me crazy is that I get feedback sometimes from developers saying, when am I going to be trained on this new technology? When I was developing code, which is a while ago now, I would train myself constantly. New languages, new approaches, new paradigms, new technologies, because that's what made my job fun. Any developer that asks to be trained on something probably doesn't have the right kind of DNA. So you parachute in people that do have it, and all of a sudden everybody raises their game. Everybody. And success, for me, is when the people that we've introduced that have different backgrounds and different approaches, when those people start recommending their social network to also come and work with us, then we've done our job. Because the finest referral engine in the world are the people that work for you. And if they're not inviting their friends, their colleagues, their family to come and work with you, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Finally, the other piece of culture which we've had to kind of change, although we're not done fully yet, is that banking presumes that people want to work for you forever. We get really upset when people leave. That is not an attitude that works in 2017, particularly not with technologists. Remember, they are the scarcest, most important resource in the world, and as a result, everybody wants them. There are not enough great technologists. What that means is, if you're lucky enough to have a fantastic team of technologists, they're going to leave at some point. Get used to it. In fact, enjoy it. Enjoy it, because the things that make them fantastic technologists will only be improved by their moving around to different employers, learning different things, acquiring different skills. We're the beneficiaries of that. We can hire them. But it's really hard to have that conversation with people in an organization which is explicitly designed to stop people leaving. And it doesn't indicate there's anything wrong with Standard Chartered. It just means they want to go and do something else. It's a very, very human thing. So, I've painted a landscape where we've changed the way that we think about things. We've changed the physical space we work in. We've changed the way that we work. We've changed the kind of people that we hire. But there's a whole bunch of other things we haven't even got around to changing yet. We've got some work to do in the HR space. I want my sprint teams to be paid collectively, not individually, because they're a team. They're a team. They should succeed or fail as a team. That's another battle we have to have. There are various other things we've got to do around funding for things. If you've worked in a large organization, you'll know that the battle to attract resources is one of the most complex political things that any organization does. And you have project review meetings, you have budget cycles, you have initiatives, you have all this kind of paraphernalia designed to tell you what you're going to spend money on for the next 12 months. I've got to be honest with you, none of that stuff matters. I always find once you abstract from all that noise, I have the same set of developers sitting at the same tables with the same product owners. All that's missing is telling them what to do, which is really what all that paraphernalia does. It should be a way of introducing stories to those sprint teams. That's it. What that does to an organization when you strip away that bureaucracy is it firstly makes them a lot lighter and a lot quicker moving. It also saves a ton of money. But it's not a popular message for large conservative organizations when a lot of people's careers are wrapped up in exactly those budgeting cycles and program review meetings and this, that, and the other. Honestly, that's a skill set we don't need anymore. So you can see it's not easy to do what we're doing. Lots and lots of human, cultural obstacles to negotiate. But what makes it worthwhile is the fact that across our footprint, and we operate as a retail bank in 32 of the most interesting places on the planet, is that we're starting to see the traction now of delivering digital content, mobile-based experiences, much more frequently, much faster, much better than we did before. And we're starting to see the impact of this in terms of the most important metric to me, which is the Net Promoter Score of our customers. Do our customers think enough of us to actually go and tell their friends and neighbors that we're kind of good? And we're starting to see that increasing now in all of our markets. And that makes me incredibly happy. And it makes me incredibly keen to continue the conversation with anybody from the fintech community that's thinking about maybe partnering with us on something, that's thinking about maybe their next product idea. And anybody else that's thinking about, you know what, I could give that a go. Don't discount banks. They're changing rapidly because they have to. That's what I've got to say to you. I'm looking forward to meeting quite a few of them after this. I'll be hanging around. And it's been my enormous pleasure to talk to everybody and have a wonderful rest of the day. The agenda is amazing, as Andrew was saying. So thank you very much indeed.
All right, thank you very much. James Dolphin from Standard Chartered Bank. James, you sold me. If my 4 months of Fortran programming in 1990 are of use to you, I want in. All right?